Okay, hey guys, my name is Cynthia, and today we will be learning about the law of cosines found on Chapter 8, Lesson 6 on page 527 in your textbook. Okay, so what is the law of cosines? Well, the law of cosines relates an angle to the side length of a triangle. Now, we can only use the law of cosines when 1, 3 side lengths of a triangle are known, and 2 sides and the included angle are known. Okay, so what does this all look like? Well, let me give you an illustration. So I'm just going to draw a simple triangle and label it ABC. Triangle A, B, C. Now it's just saying it relates the angle to the side length. Okay, so for example, angle A is going to relate to the opposite, which is side length A, which I will annotate in red marker. The same goes with B and C. Angle B correlates to this side length, which we will call B, lowercase b. Now angle C going to correspond with this angle, name lowercase, side length, name lowercase c. Okay, so that's pretty much the basics of it. Now let's just remind, only use on triangles, a 3-sided polygon. So let's move on to the equations. Our first equation, if we don't know the angle measurement of A, we are going to use a squared, which is, we're going to do the side length of it squared is going to equal b squared plus c squared. B squared and c squared are also going to be the side lengths of a triangle, not the angles. Then we're going to subtract it from 2, the product of b and c, and then cosine A. Simple enough. The same goes for b and c. B squared equals a squared plus c squared minus 2, product of ac times cosine b. Now last but not least, c squared equals b squared plus a squared minus 2 ba cosine c. Okay, so let's find an example to use. We are going to use the workbook page on page 53, which is found on end line, and we are going to do number 4. So in this equation, we are looking for measurement angle at C. I already solved the equation, so I'm just going to walk you through the steps on what I did. So we are looking for angle C. Okay, now the corresponding side is 23. So we're going to do, first, actually, we're going to write the equation. C squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. I really recommend you write the equation every time to remind yourself what you're solving for and the steps you're going to proceed in. So next I'm plugging in the numbers. C squared 23, a squared, which is 15 squared, plus b, which is 19, and then the product of 2 times 15, 19, and then multiply it all by cosine c. Okay, so 529, which is, doing the square root of each of these numbers. So I have 529 equals 586, which is the product of 15 plus 19, and then minus 578, which is also the product of 2 times 15 times 19. Now I have cosine c. So I want to get cosine c by itself. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 586 from itself by its opposite. So I have 529 now minus 586, which is going to equal negative 57 is equal to negative 578. Again, I want to get cosine c by itself. So now I'm going to divide negative 578 by itself. And now on the other side of the equation, negative 557 divided by 578 is now 0.098 equals cosine c. So Now that cosine c by itself, I'm going to get c by itself. So I'm going to move cosine to the opposite side of the equation. And when I do this, I'm going to annotate it like cosine -1 times 0.098. Now to enter this into your calculator, go to the cos button and press second cos, and then it'll look exactly like this. So cosine -1 times 0.098 is equal to 84.4 degrees, which is the side length of C. Okay, so what if we don't know two of the angles? We are going to still use the same equations. In this equation, we are looking for x and y. Now, I'm first solving x. So x is angle A. So since we don't know angle A, we are going to plug in a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc, then multiplied by cosine A. So let's plug into the numbers. We're going to plug in 14 squared, which is 196, b squared plus c squared, which is 19 squared plus 11 squared. I have 361 plus 11 squared, 121 minus 2. Then, of course, the product of b and c, which is 209 cosine A. Now, we have in this next step, I added my like terms, and I got 196 now equals 482 minus 418 cosine A. So now what I want to do is, again, I want to get cosine A by itself. So first I'm going to subtract 482 by its opposite, cancel this out. Now I have 196 minus 482, which is going to equal -286 equals -418. Again, divide it by itself. Now I have 0.68 equals cosine A. Again, move cosine A to the other side of the equation. So cosine -1 times 0.68 is going to equal the angle measurement of A. So, or x, which is what we're looking for in specific. So 47.2 degrees is equal to x. Now that we have x, we are now going to find y, which is the same thing. So let's have a reminder. Y is angle C. So again, we're plugging in the same equation. C squared equals a squared plus b squared minus the product of 2ab cosine C. So I'm plugging in all my numbers, and I have 121 plus 196 plus 361 minus 266. Remember, all of this is the product of the numbers. And then cosine C. So to get, and again, I'm getting cosine C by itself, so subtracting 557 from itself and 121, so I have -436 is equal to -532 cosine C. Again, divided by itself, this cancels out, and I have 0.82 equals cosine C. Now let's get it by itself. Once again, cosine -1 times 0.82 is going to equal to C or Y. So our product is 34.9 degrees is equal to Y. So that was easy enough. Now let's do a problem where we don't know the side length, but we are known for the angle. This is the inverse of the law of cosines. We're still using the same equations. So our next example is going to be problem number 15 in the workbook, which is now found on page 54. Let's have a reminder that you can find this on Endline. Now I'm going to draw the figure so you can see exactly what it looks like. Again, I really recommend drawing the figures, writing out the formulas each time, so you see what you are trying to solve, and that really helps. So we're going to label, so we know angle A, we want to find the side length of A. Angle A is 42 degrees. And now we're going to label B and C as appropriated, and B is 10 units, well, C is 10 units, B is 12 units. So we are still using the same equation. except for we don't have the sine length to plug in. Instead, instead of doing cosine A, we're doing cosine 142. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 bc cosine 42. Don't forget to write in the 42 to remind yourself what you are multiplying for. So the next step is, remember, a squared equals, now the sine length squared, which is 10 squared plus 12 squared, will be 244 minus the product of 2 times 10 times 12, which is 240. Cosine 42. Now we're going to use this first because we know the cosine. So that is going to now be, see, and also since we're trying to find a squared, we don't need to move cosine to the opposite side of the equation since we're trying to find the sine length instead of the angle now. So yes, tables have turned. Not really. Okay, so our next step is 244 minus 178.35. So we're going to subtract our like terms and going to come up with a solution of 65.65. Now we're not done yet because a still has the squared. Now to get rid of the square and just have with a and have it fully simplified, we're going to have to use the square root by itself and to 65.65. And that is going to equal, sine length A is equal to 8.1 units. Now I only rounded to the 10th. Okay, easy enough. Now, let's also do problem number 18 in the workbook to sum up what we learned today. Now, number 18, we are still using the law of cosines, and this is another problem where we don't know the sine length of this time angle. We don't know the sine length of angle C. So, still using the same equation. First, let me draw this out for you guys. So, A, B, C. Okay. We have 102. Now this is X, B, and A. Remember, opposites. So, B is 11, now 11 units, and A is 8 units. Now let's, again, write the equation. This really helps. C squared equals B squared plus A squared minus 2BA cosine C. And I also find it really easy to remember writing down the equation, writing down the formula multiple times really helps drill the formula into your mind so you will never forget it. So I'm just gonna skip a step, I guess, and plug in 11 squared plus a squared, which is 8 squared, and that is going to now I'm going to find the product of it, which is 185 minus 2, 8 times 11, which is 176. Here. Oh, whoops. 176. Now cosine 102. Remember, plug in the C to the angle since we know it. And we don't have to move any numbers to the opposite side of the equation since we are looking for the sine length this time, not the angle measurement. So we don't want cosine C by itself. So we're doing 185 is now going to be minus, plug in 176 cosine 102, and that is going to be minus 17.8 Okay, so I'm going to find, actually, let me round this to the thousands. So let me do 0.879 instead of 88. So c squared is now equal to, again, subtracting this, that is going to do 167.121. We want to simplify c all the way. And that is, the square root of 167.121 is 12.9 units is side length c. So that basically is the law of cosines. And I hope that this helped you well. And good luck studying for your final or your quiz or your test. And leave in the comments below what you thought, what I could have done better. And I really appreciate your feedback. Thanks for watching.